Welcome to Tracks to Success, brought to you by Presentation Partners. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories. How did they find their way to the top, and how can their path help you do the same? Here's your host, network broadcaster, executive, and entrepreneur, Kraig Kann.
Right now, on this edition of Tracks to Success, you'll hear from one of the top college football coaches in America. The man who hails from New Hampshire has gone from the Northeast to the Midwest, to the Mountain West, to the Deep South, and now he's found a home in the Sunshine State. He was once a small private high school state champion for the Pioneers. He was an all-conference selection as a small college tight end for the Bears. And then his trail to big-time, big conference, bright lights college football began. A quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator, and then a head coach who quickly became a sought-after head coach and is now on the short list of top college football CEOs and the doorstep of a trip to the college football playoff. Yet with all the pressure and all the media attention, to know him is to see him as a husband and father first, leader and motivator of young men second, and coach most likely third. So how does a college coach really balance life and young children? And just how much does he live the relentless effort message he preaches every day to his team? His name is Dan Mullen, head coach of the Florida Gators. His inspiring story and this edition of Tracks to Success starts now. Well, Dan Mullen, officially the first college football coach on the Tracks to Success podcast. Dan, truly appreciate you spending some time with me. How you doing?
We're doing great. We're doing great here. Just trying to get by and keep ourselves busy.
Well, I appreciate it. Let's start with a question you probably didn't think was coming. It's a question about being a dad, but this is not the question you think I'm throwing at you, because it's not about your two kids, but the role of a father figure responsible for 80 plus student athlete football players, right? How much do you personally treasure that opportunity?
Well, it's great. One of the great things to me in life that you get to do is make positive impact on people's lives. That's the benefit about being a coach. And one of the huge benefits I have in the coaching profession is, people ask, why do you do what you do? And trust me, I love winning. I love competing. I love all of the things around the game and game day and everything that goes on with it. But it really gets into the positive impact you can make on young people's lives. And so that is one of the biggest rewards. As a coach, you get to look back and say, hey, I helped this guy and give him a foundation of success. Now he has his own financial company. Now he started this series of gyms. Oh, these special forces. He's gone on to become a surgeon, or they've gone on to become great NFL players. But the opportunity to make positive impact in young people's lives is special. And, and so that's where a lot of the father figure comes in. To being a head coach. It is. It's one thing that you're coaching and that you're out there and you're teaching how to run a route, how to throw a ball, how to run this play, how we're using this protection, teaching them the game plan and the strategy on what it is and how we're going to win a game each week. But more importantly, you're teaching life lessons, and you're teaching life lessons that can carry on for these guys throughout the rest of their lives. And that's something I take pride in. I coached a guy named Tim Tebow, and Tim's a great young man and obviously is a really influential person around the world. And one of the things, and it wasn't exactly from him or defined by him, but, one of the things in being with him, you learn that of why you coach is you self-reflect on what it is you do. It's something that's, I think a lot of people should do, and you'll find your job, your career a lot more rewarding. Is if you sit back and you reflect on why do I do what I do, and what where you get the most joy out of that. And the wins and losses, those are highs and lows. They come and go very rapidly, and from one game to the next, and you're on to the next game. But the opportunity to make a positive impact on young people's lives is something that is completely different. And that's something that sticks with you. If you look at a guy like I mentioned at Tim Tebow, who, I was able to make a positive impact on his life and help coach him to win 2 national championships and a Heisman Trophy. And, and Tim then goes on to, be one of the most influential people in the world that goes out and makes impact on people's lives. And, it's one of those that you just learn. And so through the years, I've learned the reason you get to coach, the reason I love coaching is that opportunity to make a positive impact on young people's lives. And that's where the father figure comes in.
So a lot of other people probably define Dan Mullen or other top coaches by wins and losses. I mean, they put it right there in black and white. What you're saying, it sounds like, is at the end of a year, in an off season, time reflecting 5 years later, you're thinking about the legacy, the mentorship, the impact that you've had on those people. And that's probably more meaningful.
That's the rewarding part of it. The wins and losses come and go, and we are judged. Trust me this now. On college football, there's no college football coach that's keeping his job just because he makes a great impact on people's lives. You keep your job by winning football games. But to me, what do I find the rewarding part of it? And that's the most important thing, because if it is only purely about the wins and losses, I think you're missing out on something that is that's really special. It just makes everything just kind of a commodity, and that's not what this is about. We're in the developmental profession, and we're helping young people succeed in life. And so I think whatever anybody's looking, whatever job they're in, whatever profession they're in, I think it's when you sit back and you reflect, why do I do what I do? And that's not the whole part of the job. I mean, my job's about coaching, developing young people become their best, and hopefully winning a lot of football games. And but the reward of it, a lot of people on the outside look at the reward must be winning. The reward must be national championships. The reward must be something that's superficial, when it really isn't. The reward is something that you look back and you can reflect all the positive things and impacts you've made on people. That's the one that sticks with you. I can't tell you, I couldn't tell you what my career win-loss record is. If I sat down and really, sometimes I'd have to, if you told me, okay, hey, what was your record in 2016? I could maybe reflect on it and get into the wins and losses, and I might even have to look it up on like Wikipedia or something. And so to me, that is such a huge, something that like I said, that's not what it's about. When you go to sleep at night, you think and say, hey, have I made a positive impact on people's lives? You have such a greater reward for what you're doing and the ability to help people. That's something that really sticks with you.
Well, I think I'm pretty safe in saying there's a few fans and some media folks that could tell you what the record is, in case you didn't know it off the top of your head.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about the Gators and the SEC and all that stuff in just a little bit. But I want to go back. I want to go back to the Dan Mullen kid time, all right? Without the whistle, growing up in your neighborhood, New Hampshire. Home. Tell me about home. And if I talk to a couple of your friends back in the grade school days, what would they say about you?
Grade school, I don't know. I went to St. Thomas Aquinas. I went to Catholic school my whole life up in New Hampshire. So I was born in Philadelphia, but grew up in New Hampshire. I think I was always somebody that, loved sports. I was always going to be around sports. One of the things I think I was really blessed with, though, early on in life, if you look at my parents, my mom teaches classical ballet, and my dad was in sales and running a color separation company, and which that Fred doesn't even exist because of computers anymore. But back in those days, I was really fortunate. I was blessed. I think. I was exposed to a lot and to find what you love. And I think as a parent, my mom did a lot, and my dad as well, but to expose you to a lot of things. So when I was young, I took ballet, tap, and jazz classes. I took piano lessons.
What?
I took art classes. I played soccer. I played travel soccer. I played football, basketball, baseball. I was on a swim team. I think in like 8th grade, I'm our 7th or 8th grade. I won like a 200 state meters freestyle championship for the state of New Hampshire. Huh. But they exposed me to a lot of things. Then you find out what you love, and that's one of the things I feel really blessed in life to have done was that. And, to go into a house where my mom's a British citizen that teaches classical ballet. My dad never even played high school football. And, here I am, and my whole life revolves around football. Yeah. And I think I was really blessed that they exposed me to all the different things until I was able to find what I loved.
Okay. So small private Catholic high school, right? The Pioneers. And you won a state championship. Now, with all the big time college games that you've coached, been on the sideline for, right in the middle of it, do you remember that day, the high school state championship, like it was yesterday, maybe even more than some of that other stuff?
Oh yeah. Now that's probably one of the biggest wins of my life right there, that one. So playing at Trinity High School, we were really, it was really funny back then. We were the smallest school in the state, in the State Athletic Association. But we petitioned up to play in the biggest school division. Huh. So, we were kind of this small Catholic school. And I guess they let us do it. I think a lot of people say, oh, did they recruit all the players? And not really. I mean, we all had to pay to go to school there. And if you looked at our roster, you wouldn't think, oh, that's a team that's loaded of recruiting all the top players in the state to come play. But we petitioned to play. So I think, I had about 140, 150 in my graduating class, and we're playing schools with 3,000 kids. Wow. And, the group of guys, though, that team, that what you built and what you were together, was my junior year in high school to go and win that state championship. I always remember the coach saying, hey, that's something I'll never be taken away from. And when you think that, when you get the opportunity to go win that championship, you win a championship in high school, that you were on this team that came together. It was a special season, and we came together and found a way to win a state championship. I remember the state championship game, and everything about it, how crazy it was. We won 10-9 over Concord High School, and won on a fourth quarter field goal. And it was something that was something that you just carry with you forever. And as the coach told me, I said, hey, no matter all the good things that happen to you in life, all the bad things, no matter what you're going through in life, you can always reflect back and say, I was a champion. I was a state champion, and, we set a goal, we achieved that goal. We did it as a group, we did it as a team. And all the group of guys, the guys I went to high school with, are still a special group. They all still come. We all get together. Everybody comes down to one football game here a year in the swamp. Uh-huh. Everybody comes down to. We do a golf outing in the springtime. We do trips together with all of us and our wives. It's and as my wife will tell me, you'd think that we're all like 18 years old again every time we get together. That's how close knit of guys you have. Yeah. But I think that comes from winning a championship. It comes from being on a special team.
Okay, senior class leader, senior class clown, senior class troublemaker. What kind of kid were you?
Yeah.
All of the above?
Yeah, I could have been classified. I don't know if I got one or the other of all of those. I think I was the guy that was the quarterback on the football team, captain of the basketball team, that type of person, But, I was somebody that had a good time. And I think if you talk to everybody, and this was really a really unique deal, is I think in high school you see, and I always think I was so fortunate with this, you see a lot of different cliques in the groups, and there were. And, one of the things that I tried to do was cross that over into all the different groups. I had my guys that I were really good friends with, the guys, some of it, then most of them played football. And we really, our group of friends, when you talk to people, there are 4 high schools in the city. And, we had great friends at every one of those 4 high schools. And we kind of brought a lot of different people together because we didn't really buy in that, we had our group that was so close. but we felt that we could hang out, and we enjoyed hanging out with everybody. And so I mean, we really weren't kind of very cliquey back then. We had, we were kind of our own group and our own family that enjoyed just having fun and being around people. So we crossed over a lot of different groups back in those days.
Small high school, small college football in Pennsylvania, tight end, right? All conference senior year. But when you were lining up, Dan, at that time, I want to kind of forward ahead in life. Were you a guy who was thinking about the X's and the O's? Were you like an analytical type player who was thinking, look, I'm not going to go to the NFL. I'm not going to do this. I think I could be a coach someday.
Yeah. I don't think you always know what you want to do. I just know I love football. I love sports, and especially football. And I was, all the way back to high school, I was a quarterback, but if you walked in the huddle with me, I could tell you what all 11 guys did on every play. So I wanted to make sure anybody that ever walked in that huddle, if there was any doubt or question of what they were doing, I knew what everybody was going to do. And then I knew good, I guess I was always a schematic person and very much into the X's and O's and scheme of the game of football. Goes, back to when I was in high school. Funny story is, we're in a big game, and it was my senior year. So senior year, they combined a lot of the divisions together, have super divisions. So it was 2 defending state champs. We were the big school, state champ defendant, and it was actually, I went to the Catholic school, but the hometown I lived in, it was that town's high school, public school. So I knew a lot of the guys on their team, and it was at their place, and it was kind of a wild scene for a big game. And we drove down, and I think we scored to go within 1, and instead of kicking the extra point, we went for 2 for the win. And Coach Kann, we take a timeout. Coach comes in the huddle, calls the play. Coach leaves the huddle. I was like, boy, it's kind of like a naked bootleg for me to just keep all by myself to try to walk into the end zone. And I said, well, as you said, I wasn't the big Division I recruit, and I was pretty smart and a good decision maker. So I said, well, if I don't like the way that looks, as soon as Coach left the huddle, I said, everybody, you pay attention to the line of scrimmage, because there's a good chance I'm going to change this play as soon as we get to the line of scrimmage to call something else. And so I got up there. I didn't like the look of the play. I called to like a rollout pass where I had a couple different options. I completed it to, the guy named Toby Kluter in the end zone. He made the catch. We go on and win the game. I come running off the field. Coach's like, boy, you're lucky that worked, or you wouldn't have played anymore, probably. And I said, well, if I wouldn't have called it if I didn't know it would have worked, and it was probably a better play than the one you called. So I don't want to be disrespectful, but and then even in college, I used to do that. I went to college as a quarterback, ended up moving to play a lot at tight end. I had the opportunity to get on the field early, and I just wanted to play. So I played some fullback, played some tight end, and just to get on the field. And I'd line up at tight end, and I'd be yelling at our quarterback. I'm like, this isn't good. We need to change it to this play. I'd always be trying to yell that stuff in and study the game of football that way. I just always loved the game, loved the X's and O's and the strategy and every part of the game of football.
Before I get to the kind of the track, if you will, towards your success as a coach, and I'm going to run through that fairly quickly, but you were an education major, and then you got a master's degree. Now, you can tell me and our listeners that you love teaching, or you like teaching, or you can say, maybe I got shoved into that for my degree because it was a path I could manage or whatever. But at the core, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've heard, from what I've watched, you look like an educator. Is that a fair assessment of Dan Mullen?
Well, thanks. I was hoping you'd say I look like a movie star or something, or one of those type of
We can get to that later.
I think this. I think, I went to college, and honestly, I went and I was going to go pre-med and started down the pre-med path, and then, but realized I really love sport. And so I kind of was going to go physical therapy, then went into exercise and sports science and athletic training on, the medical side of sports, whether you're going to go try to get into almost being an orthopedic surgeon or, sports medicine, athletic training, that type of field. And, because you just don't know what it is that you're going to want to be. So I kind of went down that, and I ended up going sports medicine. And then, as I'm getting ready to graduate, really funny story, and you just think of the connections you make in life and how important they are. So growing up in Manchester, New Hampshire, I wanted, at the end of my senior year, there were a couple guys I'm like, hey, we'd love to get into coaching. And from a small school at Ursinus College, it's funny that, I went on to become the head coach at the University of Florida. And the guy lived across the hall from me, a guy named Paul Gunther, who's the defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. And we're living right across from each other in college at a little small school. But, some guys wanted to get into coaching, and I'm like, all right, I don't even know how to do that. Let's look at what we want to do and what the paths are. And, I didn't play big time football. I'm not an NFL guy. I'm not a big name person. Mm-hmm. So I needed to, figure down that path. So there was a guy, there was a guy in my hometown that was coaching. And, we played against him. He was actually that season, my senior year, he was the D coordinator at Johns Hopkins. And, he was 5 years older than me. So I knew who he was, but it was kind of like he was in a generation, but kind of that group ahead of me. So you knew, in Manchester, you know a lot of the different sports figures. So you knew of him, even though he wasn't around while we were playing. And, so I said, why don't you call him? And so I called him. We talked about coaching. He's like, I'm going back to coach at University of New Hampshire. Let me make some calls and find some entry-level jobs for you. And he did. And he got me an interview at Wagner College, and I ended up getting a grad assistant job at Wagner College. And that guy, people might know him in coaching as Chip Kelly. So, Chip was a guy that from Manchester, New Hampshire, grew up right up the street from me that you knew of and, had been around. You talk to a lot of my friends are like, Chip, it's not this big college and NFL head coach. He was, he did his student teaching as our junior high gym teacher. And, but you have that close-knit community of where we grew up. And it gets into make sure you make connections with people and take advantage of those because, I was the offensive coordinator several years later at the University of Florida. And, Chip calls and, he said, hey, I got this young coach that is finishing up being a GA. And he really wants to get into coaching. He's GA's done with us. And, if you have a GA spot, would you be interested in hiring him? And he told me his name. And I said, yeah, I remember. He was kind of like the 5 or 6 years behind me, that group that I knew the name from going back, but never played against them, never really hung out with them. And so he called and said, I got this guy named Ryan Day, and you need to hire him. And then, so Ryan was a grad assistant for me at Florida, and now he's the head coach at Ohio State. And
wow.
So it's kind of crazy how you utilize those connections and take advantage of those things to get into the coaching world. And, being the head coach of Florida is probably a long way from being an athletic training, sports medicine, or orthopedic surgeon that I originally started down that path.
Well, you mentioned Wagner College, and then people don't know you found your way to Columbia, then Syracuse, then Notre Dame, Bowling Green, Utah. They probably remember Utah. A lot of people, common fan doesn't know about the Bowling Green deal. We'll save the Gators for a little bit, but people see a resume and they, talk about a coaching tree and connections that you've made along the way that you just described. What they don't see are the stories that you're sharing about the journey, right? The journey to get there. Would you say it's more exhausting or it's more thrilling talking about the climb?
I don't know either. I think in any part of life, I think the journey is the most important part. It's not about a destination. I guess I saw this great quote one time, my life has no finish line, I'm not sitting there and saying, okay, if you win a championship, I want to win a second one. Hey, you never arrive. You're always trying to get better. But I think it is while you're on the journey, if you want to be successful, while you're on the journey, you better learn everything about being on the journey and learn how you got where you got to. I think if people try to take shortcuts in life and all of a sudden where you're at, you realize, hey, I'm struggling. What if, you go and you climb the mountain and you slip and fall off the mountain? Well, if you took a shortcut to get there, you don't know the path back to success. And I think that's really important. So I think, when you're on the journey to success in life, when you're on your journey or your path in life, you need to enjoy it. You need to embrace it. You need to understand it. And you need to remember what it took to get where you were. If you don't, and you ever slip off, you never know how to get back there.
Yeah.
And you never know how to get back on that path to success. So, I've enjoyed the journey. I love what I do. I love coaching. I love being the head coach of the Florida Gators. But, I loved being making $3,000 a year, coaching at Wagner College or sleeping, 5 guys in a 1-bedroom apartment in Harlem in Columbia, and I slept at university, and I slept on a couch. It really didn't matter because you didn't have any money. You didn't have any time to spend your money because you were working all the time. And, just trying to learn and earn and fight your way up to the top. I think that's what it is. And I think that's such a critical part of the journey of I think if the other part of it is, if you're always worried, I've never worried about the destination. I just worried about the journey and was I being the best that I could be? And, you would have said, hey, is your goal to be the head coach at the University of Florida? When I started coaching at Wagner College or Columbia University, I don't know that I would have ever even been able to grasp that. I knew my goal was to become the best that I could be. Yeah. And if I worked hard every day at it, people saw the work that you put in, great things would happen for you. And that's kind of how I've lived my life.
There's that saying about ship captains, they don't gain their best experience from calm seas, right? They have to deal with things that happen along the way. And you mentioned the sleeping on couches and all that. I got a question for you. I'm going to flip the script a little bit because I know you coached at Utah and quarterback mentor to Alex Smith, an amazing youth team. People talk so often about Tebow, and you've already mentioned Tim Tebow. Stole a question from me for later. That's fine. Good job out of you. But how much people think a guy like Smith learns from you, but what do you, as a top coach in your journey, learn from a guy like Smith and a guy like Tebow and a guy like Leak? You have to take something from the people you coach, don't you?
You do. You're always learning from each other, and and spending the time. I mean, the one thing is, when you're coaching these guys, you spend so much time together that you grow. And you grow together and you learn together. And, I learned from one of my players. I learned as a young coach, sometimes you're hot-headed and you're kind of so competitive, you want to get after it. I had a young guy named Josh Harris played for me at Bowling Green, a really successful quarterback. And, he threw an interception, came off, and I was like yelling at him. And he looked at me and he said, hey, he goes, why don't you just shut up? He goes, I want to win just as bad as you want to win. So if you don't have anything productive to say to help us win this game and get me better, then just shut up. I don't need somebody yelling at me.
Did he really say that? He told you to shut up?
Absolutely. But that's the relationship you kind of have with guys that, they're competitive and I'm competitive, and you kind of can butt heads and you get fiery sometimes. But that the relationship, you're so close that you learn from some. I was a young coach learning. I learned a lot from Alex Smith, and just as a person, as a man, how he did things. And you start getting that relationship and like, hey, try this. I tell our guys all the time with the quarterbacks. And if I ask a question and we're watching film and I said, what did you do here? Why'd you do that? And a lot of them, one of the funny questions, guys are like, okay, coach, what should I have done? And I said, well, what I think is completely irrelevant right now, because I'm not the one on the field that has about 1.2 seconds until some 300-pound guy hits me in the face. So how I'm processing information standing on the sidelines is not as important to me as how you're processing information. I need to think more like you so that we can get on the same page. And then once I start thinking like you, then I can get knowledge to you and help you make better decisions for you to start thinking like me. Yeah. But I just can't lecture at you and expect you to think like me. I need to think like you first. And so I think you learn so much about each guys, and you learn all these different things throughout your life. And I think when you have such open, close relationships with people, when you do that with the people you work with, you can take a lot of constructive criticism, because that everyone is trying to, when you're around people. One of the things when I became a head coach that was so huge was trusting the fact that if you hire good people, that they want to do well and succeed too. And so you don't have to micromanage every single part of your program. Boy, that's a hard lesson for first-time CEOs, and when you're running a program or you're running a company, because you're like, this is my opportunity to be in charge, and you start wearing yourself out. And you have to start understanding that, hey, you surround yourself with good people, listen to what they have to say, understand that they want to be successful, whether it's your players that have good ideas, okay, or your players and other people that have thoughts. If you just lecture people on this is how everything has to be done, they never bring new ideas to the table. And you're really never learning to grow and learn how they learn and learn how to think like them and learn how to have a successful organization.
So did you study coaches growing up? Like, is there anybody that you said, oh, I'd like to be like that guy? Maybe an NFL guy, Lombardi or Chuck Noll, for example, or a Ditka, or were there college coaches, a Woody Hayes or a Bo Schembechler or somebody that you was like, man, I want to be like them. Did you study and analyze?
I've read lots of books, you've read books, from John Wooden and Mike Krzyzewski to Belichick and Walsh and, all the great ones to, success books. Like, Rudy Giuliani, I thought had a great book on leadership I've always really loved. How he dealt with 9/11 as the mayor of New York. And, reading books by George Bush, reading all kinds of different successful business people books. I think you read and you study a lot of those different things. But to me, the biggest one is learn from the people that you're with and learn from situations. I always kept a folder from when I started coaching, and it's just, when I started, I guess you'd call it like your coaching file, and of things that we would do and things that would happen and things that I thought were good and things that I thought were bad and different ideas and thoughts that I had, and learning from different people. And I'll be honest with you, the people that you deal with the most, most influential coaches were probably my high school and college coaches that I played for. And then, Walt Hamline at Wagner College, and you get on, you go to, Paul Pasqualoni was so huge in my coaching development at Syracuse. And Kevin Rogers, who I was his grad assistant for a long time. Urban Meyer, who I was an assistant coach for a long time. All those different people have a great influence on you, but they do if you're paying attention to, how you can be better as a coach, how things that they do. And then if there's things that are going on in the program that you like, make notes about it. That you don't like, make notes about it and say, hey, if I'm the head coach, this is how I would do something different. That file is now called my head coaching file, because I knew that now I've learned that it would lead you down a path to become a head coach one day. And but it's something I still go back and review, once a year. You go back and you buzz through the head coaching file and just look at some different notes and thoughts and how you can do things better. And, and you continually add to it as well. Yeah.
You were a part of 2 BCS national title teams with Urban in 06-08. And I know coaching's a year-round deal, and a lot of people say, okay, he's from the Urban Meyer tree, right? Kind of like what you talked about progression, and you work for this coach or that coach. I'm going to put you on a play clock, if you will, put you under the gun here a little bit. Who is Dan Mullen as a head coach?
Well, you know what? For me, you are your own head coach. Let me share this with you first. Don't ever try to imitate somebody else. You have to be yourself as a leader. So I run now. It doesn't mean I'm not going to take ideas and then outlines and other thoughts of how other people have run programs to implement. But how you run the program, it has to be done on your own personality. So, you know what? I'm a guy that in our program, and me as a head coach, I want to get young men into our program that have great work ethic and character, because those are the type of young men that are going to continue to improve while you coach them. Me as a head coach, I want to put them in a program that focuses on development, that we want to develop young men. So, if someone that comes into my program, that's the before picture. And what we're trying to do is create the after picture and, of what that is as a young man. And we're going to help develop you in every aspect of your life, in your athletic life, your social life, your academic life, your spiritual life. In everything that you do, we're going to help you grow and develop, have a foundation to be successful for you for the rest of your life. So that's me and who I am as a coach. Now, I'm also a coach that loves the game, loves the strategy of the game, loves the X's and O's and the schematics of the game. and always wants to be on kind of the cutting edge of where football is, that I'm not afraid as it comes to the actual game itself to think outside the box and try to be an innovator.
Want to talk about Florida in a second, but I can't get to Florida without talking about Mississippi and the impact that you made there at Mississippi State, the people, the passion. But I need to start with a story as it goes on your first day when you're in front of all the players and all the administrators and those involved with the program, when you were basically walking in there to talk to them. A story, something about wishers and wanters. Can you tell that story?
Absolutely. So, my first team meeting, I was really fortunate. I got hired at Mississippi State in mid-December, and school had already finished for the semester. So the team had gone home. So you didn't have the whole team together. And so the team was gone, and I went back and coached the BCS National Championship game for Florida. I kind of got my staff hired, got things in place, got recruiting up and running, got everything going. Met some of the players, talked to all of them on the phone, but didn't have a big team. My first team meeting wasn't going to be until January. And so we go on, we win the national championship at Florida, one of the most exhausting times of your life. You're an offensive coordinator at one school, a head coach at another. And, we win the championship. I got on a plane early the next morning, fly back to Mississippi, had my first team meeting that afternoon. And it was great because the whole team was excited. They just saw I won the national championship the night before. So one of the first things I said to everybody, I said, who in this room wants to win a championship? And everybody raised their hand. And I said, we got a problem. And I said, you're all lying to either me or yourself, one or the other. Because if everybody wanted to win a championship, you wouldn't have a new head coach standing in here. Everybody wishes they could win a championship, right? Everybody looks and says that confetti fall on your head, that looks really neat. And I wish I could do that. But if you wanted to win a championship, you would have made sure every single morning you woke up in the morning and didn't go to sleep until you had put yourself in a position to try to accomplish that. A team that I think they'd won maybe 2 games the year before. A team that only won 2 games the year before wouldn't be a team that wants anything except, they weren't wanters. They were wishers. They were like, and I think in life, I did that in my first team meeting in Florida, and I said, hey, a wisher is somebody that's going to sit there and say, they might tell you they want it. I want to win a championship. I want to do this. I want to graduate college, right? I want to graduate college. Great. Why have you missed class? Why are you missing tutoring? Did you spend an extra 4 hours studying last night? No. Okay. Then don't tell me you want to do it, right? I think I saw a great quote from Gary Player to get into golf. And somebody said, hey, I love your swing. I want to have a swing like yours. I've been working. I want to have a swing like yours. And he grabbed his hand. He said, well, your hands don't have blisters all over. Because you kind of wish you had a swing like mine. If you want to swing like mine, you're going to get up and go start swinging the golf club every single morning until your hand starts bleeding. Then you tape it up, and then you swing it 1,000 more times, 1,000 more balls. But don't tell me that. If you want to, hey, I want to have a successful business. Well, what are you doing to make that happen? Are you doing everything possible to accomplish your goal? Or are you just lying in bed wishing about it? The wishers are lying in bed thinking about what they're wishing for, while the wanters have been up for 2 hours making it happen.
Yeah. Dan Mullen is our guest on this edition of Tracks to Success. Tracks to Success is brought to you by Presentation Partners, visual storytellers, passionate about connecting presenters with their audience. You can never control when opportunities come. You can work hard to make them happen. You were just a few wins shy of being the Bulldogs, Mississippi State, all-time winningest coach. By the way, you talked about the 2-win season, then it was like 5 the next year with the toughest schedule in the country. So you had Mississippi State to number 1, Dan. Coach of the year, all that stuff. Huge success at Mississippi State. Ultimately, you leave for Florida. My question is about how you handle the public rumorville that swirls around coaches like you who have success and you become sought after. How in the world did you deal with that and stay focused?
Well, I think one of the things, the key is staying focused, and you control what's going on. And I always laugh, and every year they say you have the same quote, which is in the coaching profession, there's always rumors about you. There's either a rumor you're getting fired or a rumor you're going somewhere else. And if the rumor is you're getting fired, it's because you're not winning. And if the rumor is you're going somewhere else, it's because you're winning. So I'll always take the second one, that, you're always rumored to be going on to the next job. But, we live in a world where everybody, hey, what's the best thing? Let's move on. What's next? What, for you. And to me, in our time, we got a lot of calls. There were a lot of opportunities through the years to leave Mississippi State. But Megan and I both loved living there. We love the people of Starkville. We love the community. We love the state of Mississippi. Both my kids were born there. And most importantly, I love the players. I love the players that we had in the program that we built, and to be around those guys. So, we weren't, despite all the rumors that would always be swirling, it wasn't like we were looking to move on or just take the next best opportunity or anything to come along. It would have to be something special. And, so after a couple of years ago, whatever season that was, as I said, I don't know. I gotta always think what year. After the 2017 season, I guess it was.
Yeah, you've been in Florida 2 years, Dan.
So after the 2017 season, there were some opportunities for us to go places. And we had sat down and we said, hey, if we put 9 years in, we gave everything in that 9 years. I gave everything that I had to Mississippi State to help make it successful, to build as successful a program, to win. We'd gone to 8 consecutive bowl games they've never done. As you said, we took the team to number 1 in the country. Unprecedented success of players and of those guys going on to have success, later on down the road. And, the opportunity to come to the University of Florida was just something that was so special for us, that it was an opportunity that, at that time we looked and said, okay, maybe we're ready for the next challenge. We've given everything we have over 9 years to Mississippi State, and we're ready for that next challenge. And but it would have to be something special for me to go do that. And the University of Florida, obviously, is something special. And what the history, the success I had here as an assistant coach, the history in the program, being at Florida, being the only school in the United States that each of the last 2 seasons been not only a top 10 football team, but is also a top 10 public university. We're the only school in America that has both of those two. And, to come to such a premier place is an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Yeah, and there's so much tied to recruiting, not just in Mississippi, but in the state of Florida as well. So I got a recruiting question for you, but it's a little different. You talk about passion in sports and all that, and the greatest passion. And to me, I've kind of seen it, heard it, passion of family for you. So let's talk recruiting a little bit, right? Your wife, who I know because I was her co-anchor. She's going to like me saying that. I was her co-anchor on Golf Channel. You talk a lot as a football coach about relentless effort. Is that what it took to get the TV sportscaster woman to be your wife? I mean, did you have to recruit hard, or were you kind of a big deal and it was all the cards just fell your way?
Yeah, as you said, now for our kids, she looks and she says, hey, I was the one that was on TV. It's not really your dad. I was the one that was the main TV personality in the family. And no, you know what? We had such a unique story. I was coaching at Bowling Green in Ohio, and I was watching the news one night. This pretty blonde girl was on doing the sports and said, if you have any comments, you can email Megan West at NBC. And so I flipped up my computer and I typed up an email, said, hey, I have a comment. I'd love to take you out sometime. Obviously the TV station, she must get a lot of stalkers because I never heard anything back. So about a week goes by and I see it again. I'm like, she never responded. So I'm like, hey, I'm not a stalker. I coach the quarterbacks Bowling Green. You cover our games. I'm around. Just want to take you out sometime. And, they're kind of rude not to respond to my email. So, just at least have the courtesy to respond to my email. And I guess the TV station's like, hey, he is the quarterback coach Bowling Green. You cover the games. Just at least respond to his email, maybe for lunch or something like that. And so the TV station kind of made her go out with me. And, we went out and she tried to call and say, she tells the story much better than I do. But she's like, all right, let's go to lunch. I'm like, well, I have a job. I don't have time for lunch. I'll meet you for dinner one night. And So we went out to dinner, and you know what, we started dating there a little bit off and on, and then life gets crazy. I got hired at about 6-8 months later to go to the University of Utah, and what was really crazy, and I mean, people on TV would get this, is about 3 weeks after I got hired at the University of Utah, she got offered the main sports anchor in Salt Lake City, which is a top 25 market.
Great market.
And, that's a huge jump. And, so we both ended up getting hired in Salt Lake City at the same time, and kind of started to continue dating seriously from there, and got engaged, and then got married right after I got hired, left Utah to come to Florida. We got hired, we got engaged, and about 4 weeks after we got engaged, I got hired to come to Florida.
To this day, that she drove from Gainesville to Orlando to work with clowns like me and other people at that place you would talk about relentless effort. My goodness gracious. She gives
the relentless effort. She'll always laugh. She says, boy, I always thought TV person, life in TV was a crazy lifestyle until I met a coach. She goes, because, I'd leave to go to work in the morning. She'd get up, she would drive to Orlando, do her TV shows, and drive home, and she'd still beat me home. Yeah. So she was here when I left, and she was here when I got back, including her commute to Orlando every day.
So Dan, how do you balance that? How do you get away from football and spend time? I mean, you got two great kids, Cannon and Breland, and a wife who's, completely dedicated to your program and you. How much of a balance is that we don't see?
Well, I think it's huge. I think one person, anybody that, when you have this job and you have a responsibility of I'm the head coach at the University of Florida, but really you're the CEO of the Florida football program. Mm-hmm. And, anybody that runs business, or anybody that has, in their career and puts a lot into their career. The key is you got to have great balance. For me as a head coach, I think one, your family's got to be 100% on board, because it is something that you spend a lot of time away from home, but you have to have a wife that understands you're not going to be there all the time, that is willing to kind of pick up a lot of the slack of things that you're missing, and not be upset about it, but also is, going to work to bring the kids over to see us, bring the kids to practice all the time. So at the end of practice, you get to go play catch for 10 minutes before you head back into meetings at night. Or that comes over and has dinner with you every once in a while, or a stop by to have a quick lunch with you. So you get to spend that quality time together. I think that's critical. And then I think, also, and I've learned this now being a head coach for a long time and doing this, is you got to find your balance in life. And your balance is going to be different for everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give you the a recipe of saying, okay, hey, make sure you do this 2-week vacation, or you do that here, or you take your kids to do this. There's no exact thing for everybody. But to me, it is making sure I understand the balance in my life, and that I make sure that I'm there for my kids, that I want to go to kids' sporting events. I was, my son Cannon plays some golf, and it was like 2 years ago. I think my first season in Florida, on our bye week on that Sunday. So we had a Sunday, we had Sunday off from the coaches. And, that was your one day during the season you had off. And I went caddy for him. And somebody's like, hey, aren't you damn? I'm like, yeah, I'm just a caddy today. But when you do have those opportunities, that you make the most of it, but you do find the balance. And I try to do it for all of our coaches. I try to give them schedules to make sure that they see. One of the things, that was crazy, I always remembered as a kid is my dad taking me trick-or-treating. And, in the football world, for Halloween, in the football world, a lot of times you're busy on holidays. And so, we try not to on Halloween night, as soon as practice is over, all the coaches go home so you can take your kids trick-or-treating. On Thanksgiving, we practice early in the morning. I changed the schedule Thanksgiving week so everybody can go home and have a Thanksgiving dinner at home with their family. We've had to do it. We did a couple of years where, we have Christmas at a hotel at a bowl game. So everyone has Christmas at a hotel. And, one of the things I say is, okay, football starts at 2:00 on Christmas Day, but before then, we make sure we have trees, and we have coaches, we have a strength coach dress up as Santa Claus, Nick Savage Claus. And and we hand out presents to players and the kids' families, and we just try as much as we can to make sure that you do find a great balance in life to be a husband and a father, as well as running your program and your organization. But it does take an understanding family. It takes family buying in and believing it. Instead of complaining about certain things, it's enjoying it. Like my son, I mean, he comes to all the road games. He does Friday night bed check with me. That's our great quality time together. And I mean, it's something that he embraces and he loves. But I've been able to incorporate them into our program, and other coaches, and they have their families. There's kids, coaches' kids are on our sideline, and they've been able to incorporate family into the program. And I think that is how you find your balance.
A lot of audibles. There have to be a lot of audibles with the young kids in the Mullen house. I mean, you blow the whistle at practice. I'm guessing it's Megan that blows it in the house. Who wears the pants? Is it your daughter?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Look, she gets a lot more done than me. I mean, you would be shocked. You would be shocked to think that I could get 100 football players to do what we get them to do. If I mean, you see them at home sometimes. She runs it every once in a while. I'll come in and try to lay down the hammer, but I mean, that doesn't always work.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Kraig leads the Kann Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, empowering team and individual workshops, mind-altering webinars, and Kraig's inspiring keynotes for your conference or company meeting. They're all on the menu of services. Kann Advisory helps companies clarify their message, helps professionals build and showcase their brand, and helps everyone present their best selves. So if you're the leader of a team or company looking to give your employees a game-changing one-day experience, or an individual who wants to become a speaker and presenter that gets other people talking, visit candadvisory.com. And when you do connect, make sure to mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive a special discount on any of the Kann Advisory services. That's candadvisory.com. Now back to the interview.
Couple things before we put a wrap on this. I want to talk about charity. We're talking with Dan Mullen, the head coach of the Florida Gators. You have a foundation. Now, some might say, you know what, that's something that coaches just kind of do. It's an obligation, big name coaches and so forth. And it looks good. But for you, there seems to be an emotional bond to it. There's a tie-in and a give back. Is that a fair assessment?
It is. It's something, when we started it, and, like you said, I mean, I don't disagree. A lot of coaches, you start a foundation and you just, hey, we have it to have it. But ours is, we always wanted to make sure, what are we doing to give back? What are we doing to help people and be productive? And the Mullen 36 Foundation, we started in Mississippi. We did a lot. We helped a lot of different, I don't think we had the focus on the exact direction of every part of our foundation at the time. We knew we wanted to do things to help, and it was the best way was to start a foundation. So we took 36 different children's charities around the state of Mississippi, did a lot, helping build a Boys and Girls Club Center, helped build after school centers in towns that, had lost some accreditation, helping children's hospitals, and kids that are people that are going through tough times in life, and giving them opportunities to go help themselves. And, and now coming to Florida, we've really kind of focused in on something that we've gotten a little bit more passionate about, which is early childhood reading. And I think when you look when you look at some young children that have reading disabilities, 1 in 4 children have a reading disability out there, and the schools aren't prepared to handle it, and a lot of parents don't even recognize it, and because there's some, I think people recognize the dramatic ones, but not the smaller ones that, very easily could be fixed with a little help and assistance. And so that's something that we've really focused our foundation on, is finding ways of trying to get screening done and seeing, screening done for all first and second graders, and to see where their level of reading at and what little assistance things they can have to help them. Because I'll tell you what, if you think about it, of how scary it must be to be a first or second grader, and you're that 25% that doesn't read on the level of everybody else in the class. And, whether it is a minor form of dyslexia and you see the words differently, or you group the words differently, or you don't see what everybody else is seeing. And, nothing scarier than, hey, have the teacher read the book to you. And you are just in such a mental grind of trying to memorize every word so that you can read it back to them. Not because you read it, because you memorized it, because you don't want to be embarrassed. When all it is, there's, if it's identified early enough, there's little steps that you can take that will help those students become regular readers and get caught up with everybody very quickly before it gets too long. So that's something that we've really kind of focused our foundation on moving forward.
3 quick hit things before we're done, and then a last question. A minute on each of these.
All right.
Leadership. How do you define it for everybody out there?
A simple definition: a leader sets a standard and then makes sure everybody lives up to that standard. That's the definition of a leader. Is where if whatever bar, if you're the leader, wherever you set the bar, don't expect anybody to go over it. Always expect everybody underneath it, and your responsibility is try to bring everybody up to the bar that you set. So wherever you want to set the bar as a leader, you set it, and then make sure you live up to it. And then your responsibility is try to pull everybody up to that level as well.
You mentioned Tim Tebow. Here we go. Why is he not coaching? I know he's an athlete still playing, baseball and doing whatever, but leading people. You want to talk about great leaders. He's still playing. He's on TV. Why is he not coaching? Or is he going to just run for political office someday?
I think with someone like Tim, and who knows what his future, and I don't ever want to speak for him, but, in knowing Tim, knowing him really well, coaching's a way of life, and it's something that you dedicate your life to. It's not a 9-to-5 job and you have other hobbies a lot. It's 24/7, 365. And if you look at Tim and what his calling is and what he does and his, the Tim Tebow Foundation, Night to Shine, if you haven't seen it, what he does for special needs children around the world is one of the most spectacular things. If you want to get involved, we've been involved in it for several years now. But if anybody out there wants to look up Night to Shine, it'll blow your mind. But all the work that Tim does to help people around the world, that's not conducive to a coaching lifestyle. So that's probably why I don't know that coaching's in his future, and that's not really his calling.
Trick question. Which one do you like better, game days or media days?
That's about as easy a question as you're going to get right there. Game day is, game day. Cannon actually asked me that today. He's like, all right, what's your favorite day of the week? I said Saturday. And then, my daughter looked, every Saturday or just the ones we win? And I said, no, every Saturday. I love game day. And every once in a while I love Saturdays because I get to go watch you guys play, in the off season every once in a while and spend time with my family. So, but now game days are special. Media days are, media days are a wake-up call. They have media days in the middle of summer, and it's your reminder that summer vacation's just about over. It's time to get back to work and the grind, and how important SEC football is to people in the South.
I say that because you're not bad at it. Could you see yourself on TV? I mean, Mac Brown, Rick Neuheisel, Urban Meyer's on TV. Mark Richt is now on TV. We ever going to someday see Dan Mullen sitting up there, spouting off about this, that, and the other?
I think there's a possibility about that, right? It's easier to tell everybody what they're doing wrong than have everybody else judge you. But I don't know. Every time I am on TV and do any sort of media thing, I have a really tough coach I get home to that was in the media and coaches me up about where my eyes are, where my face looked, what my hands are doing, every aspect of what I did in the media. So if I do, I know I'm going to have a great coach right here at home with Baker.
Dan, you won 2 New Year's 6 bowl games, right? I mean, you've had amazing success. 69 games you won at Mississippi State, by the way. I'm giving you the numbers. 21 so far in 2 years at Florida, 10-3, 11-2. What will define success for you from this point forward? This podcast is called Tracks to Success. What defines that for you?
Well, I think, there's 2 different ways that you're going to look at it. I think as a coach, a lot of time your success is going to be defined on championships. That's a very simple definition of defining success by wins and losses. I don't think that's a really healthy way to go through your life. I think that the way that you got to look at your life is, did we reach our potential? And on the path to success, did we reach our potential? Did this team that we coached, each individual year, were we as successful as we could be with that team? And did we become the best that we can be? I think I talked earlier about, the ability to go sleep at night, knowing that you made a positive impact on young people's lives. That is such a huge definition of success. And here's why, and I share this with you, of what's, when you think about success in your life, as it takes you personally. Okay, when you were in second grade, who won the World Series? Who won who won the national championship?
Can't remember.
All right, who won the Heisman Trophy that year? I bet you know who your second grade teacher was. So as it pertains to you, who was your second grade teacher?
Mrs. Farrington. So
Mrs. Farrington made such an impact on your life that but you couldn't tell it. You had no idea who won any sort of sports championship that year. And so I think if you can get caught up in defining success the wrong way, because Mrs. Farrington had a much bigger impact on your life. So your success in life, Miss Farrington had a major impact more than any sports team or any record or any winning and losing that went on for that year. And, so I think that is how you define it. How will, when you look up on Wikipedia and in the history books and on charts, how are you defined? You're going to be defined on wins, losses, and championships as a coach. How do you want to define yourself as a person? Define yourself on the impacts that you make on other people's lives and the lasting memories they have of you. I think that's how the best way to define success is. And you got to make sure, for anybody that's out there, make sure you separate the two. Trust me, I love winning. I want to win every champion. I want to win it. I want to win the national championship this year. I want to win every single game we play. Don't think that for 1 second that I don't want to do that and have the best football program in the United States of America. But I'm not going to risk my character, who I am, or what I truly believe in on the inside to make that happen, because that is not the true definition of success for me as a person.
Couldn't have said it better. Nobody on this podcast could say it better. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Honored to have you as the first coach on this. You've made a great impact in a lot of ways for a lot of people, and you're doing it in the state of Florida and the University of Florida. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you being on Tracks to Success.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kraig. Go Gators.
In our conversation, Dan shared some of the messages he preaches to his team: relentless effort and the difference between wishing for something and truly wanting it. Dan has climbed the college football mountain like many coaches, doing it his way, which leads me to my one last thing. If you want to be an influencer, don't allow yourself to get swallowed up in doing things the way others tell you it has to be done, or the way it's always been done before. To reach your best personal summit, you have to be you and put your stamp on your own way of doing things and your own legacy when it's all over. Small school kids can become big-time leaders, and making the most of supporting cast roles can lead you to great opportunity to test yourself at a higher level of leadership. The point is that everyone comes from somewhere, and success doesn't care where that actually is. It cares about what you've done with the gifts you bring to each and every opportunity. Dan's right when he talks about wishers and wanters. Maybe you've heard the saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish. It's true. So do yourself a favor and work on your game plan ASAP. I hope these thoughts and this interview with Dan helps put you on the track to success. And by the way, this is the finale of season 1, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please share your comments. If you have a guest you think belongs on Tracks to Success, share it on our Twitter site @Tracks to Success. And do me a favor, spread the news about this podcast. Until next time, and the debut of Season 2, I'm Kraig Kann. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Tracks to Success, brought to you by Presentation Partners, visual storytellers passionate about connecting presenters with their audience. Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. You can follow Kraig on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @Kraig Kann. And for exclusive Tracks to Success content and news about our upcoming guests, you can find Tracks to Success on Twitter. It's @Tracks to Success.